Hi, it's Betsy Ward. I'm the CFO of MassMutual, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the CFO Thought Leader Podcast.
Hi, it's Jack Sweeney. Welcome to CFO Thought Leader 123, where each episode we feature three different CFOs and highlight some of their strategic thinking, defining career moments, and favorite pastimes. First up, meet Emma Seymour, CFO of Deputy. Emma takes us behind the scenes of raising capital from strategic partners, ushering in a new CEO, and ultimately achieving unicorn status at Deputy. Next, Ahuja, CFO of Novelis, explains how lessons from his years in pharma at Novartis have paid it forward when it comes to strategic resource allocation. Finally, Seth Wunder, CFO of Acorns, shares his quest to find quality time for reading. He also has a recommendation for a book or two for us. And so let's begin. 1, 2, 3.
Talked about raising capital. So when I joined Deputy early 2022, knew that it was going to be on the cards at some point. And, we navigated a pretty interesting year where, we had to optimize for runway. We had to move the business to profitability. We had to really strengthen our foundations so that we could usher in our new CEO, at the beginning of 2023. 2023. I'm already losing the dates. 24 is messing me up that we're already going into a new year. And then really on the back of that, it was, okay, we now have our new leader in seat. We have refined and strengthened our strategy. And once again, it was on the table to go and raise capital. And, in exploring this was a pretty defining strategic moment because, it's fairly straightforward to go and raise with VCs or otherwise. But we started talking with a prospective customer, named Express Pros, which is one of the largest staffing agencies in the US. And in the 6 months that we were getting to know each other and they were just exploring Deputy as a product and coming on board, they gave us such a compliment in that, coming from our space and knowing our space, they saw the value of Deputy as a product and they wanted to invest. They wanted to come on board as a customer, but they also wanted to make a strategic investment because they knew that it would be all up and to the right from there. And they saw the opportunity in us partnering together, and helping really just, how do we then distribute Deputy to their customers and so on as well. And so we spent a good 6 months exploring this opportunity, and bringing them on as customers, all of that. And very, very pleased to share that, they made a strategic investment in Deputy, for 25 mil USD. And the value of that partnership is really going to be through distribution longer term, right? And the value that creates. And then following, that deal being struck, we then brought on Xero, which is a large accounting, platform in Australia. And they also followed in the following months to make another investment of 25 mil US. And again, there's a big distribution unlock for Deputy through that. So I'd say in sharing that with you, one of the strategic, defining moments for me at Deputy was, I guess, exploring that pathway in outside traditional fundraising, really starting to work with strategic partners, and the value that they could help co-create and identify was just really wonderful. It was a really great experience, and we're very, very fortunate and very pleased to have them as partners. They're a very strong fit for us. And it's all going brilliantly. They've been exceptional up until this time, and we're really excited about the future that we're going to be creating together. But those deals also helped launch Deputy, to reach unicorn status as well. So we had this quick succession of moving to profitability, bringing on the CEO, big customer that was coming on board, but identifying that there was an opportunity there to do more. And then with their investment reaching unicorn status, now we're going into next year, and it's just extreme focus on execution. There's so many opportunities in front of us now. We're just heads down and need to drive it forward. But that's been a particular highlight over the last. last couple of years for me.
I came to the CFO world from investment banking, and it was, I'm sure it is still now, but in my days, it was very demanding sector with tough attitude, long hours, competitive environment. So, I thought, what, I'd be different this time as a CFO. I'll try to mellow down. I'll pursue consensus in my decision making, create a more harmonious environment. And this creation of harmonious environment for me always associated back then with the consensus. I wish someone had told me at the start of my career that consensus is not the best decision, but quite often is the worst decision because no one is right. So I wish someone would have told me, instead of seeking consensus, seek consent. So, and for me, it was really kind of one of those mind-opening experiences. And how come, I didn't realize that actually, that's not exactly the right way to build businesses.
So in pharma, it's all about resource allocation, because you have a whole pipeline of opportunities. Do you go for product X or a therapeutic area X or Y or Z? There is a multitude of choices. You have a choice of doing it in-house. You have a choice of buying out. You have a choice of in-licensing. You have a choice of creating it in-house. You are faced with umpteen choices. Number one. That's on the pipeline. Number two is on sales and marketing, because there are two things that power the pharma business. One is discovery and development, and the other is, promotion of the products. How do you launch a product? What kind of resources do you put behind that? It is an industry where if you're not good at resource allocation, if you're not sharp on really doing a rigorous analysis of choice A versus B versus C, you don't make it. And I think that after working for 15 years in the pharma industry, your gene kind of gets developed in that direction. And so thinking all the time about, this is the pool of dollars that I have, and this is the pool of opportunities that I have. What should I be doing? It's about measuring the size of the opportunity versus the size of the risk. What's the money at risk? If something goes wrong, how much money can I lose? But if it goes right, what can I make? So it is about really thinking from first a strategic direction, and then second, good execution, good capital budgeting, good CapEx tracking, good project progress tracking. And then after that, holding people accountable on delivering to what was promised, So finance has a big role to play in ensuring discipline on resource allocation, number one, but also number two, discipline on execution. And I think that the finance organization is playing a role together with all their business partners in making all this happen. So to your original question on how did pharma help me, I think that developing that gene inside your head, on how you think about resource allocation, I think pharma helped me a lot in doing that. Doubling EBITDA is not an accident. It has been a strong partnering between the business leaders and the finance leaders coming together to prioritize, allocate resources. Capital allocation is a big deal for us. We are a very capital intensive company. And if you don't make the right investment decisions, things can go very badly wrong. So if you invest wrongly, it can derail you completely, because these are big investments, and if they don't turn out to be right, it has consequences. But not investing has consequences because you don't grow. So finding that right balance of where do I prioritize and put my capital, I think that I have played a role in that. Both organically, we have done a big acquisition, inorganically as well. So, that has been something that, I have influenced, and my team has influenced together with all the business leaders in the team.
And one night, I was the controller controller at the time, and my planning manager, Janice, and I were there working with Paul, trying to put the finishing touches on the plan. And Paul would get a roll up. He would look at everything. I'd really like to change this about personnel, this about utilization, make those changes. We'd roll everything through. Finally got to be about 2:00 in the morning, and I said, Paul, you have to go home. You can't stay here any longer, because when you stay, you cause, remember, we still have 2 hours of work to do after you leave. And I'll tell you, that right there showed the importance of finance. Paul said, sure. He listened to the finance people. I mean, he realized how important I think we were, not only to the process, but to the division and the organization. So he finally left around 3, and we did our thing, and I left around 5, and Janice, I think, finally left around 6:00. And I went home with a cat nap, took a shower, came back, presented the plan in C-suite, everything went fine. But the really odd thing is, at the time, Hughes was still doing, they are now, still doing random drug tests. And here we were 2 days later, and both Janice and I got called for a random drug test. I just have to think, number one, of course, it couldn't be random, and it had to be because we stayed there that late that night. Now, the good thing is we both passed, right? We both passed, so we still had jobs. But it was just so funny that we got pulled for that test at that time.
Well, I think for the most part, I don't want to get into politics, but you look at like many past presidents and you like learn they've read like hundreds of books while they're president, and you think like, where the hell, how did they find the time? Yeah. So if they found it, like we all could find it. But, at night, you bang out a whole bunch of pages, the weekend, Saturday or Sunday morning, flights, to the degree, whether personal travel, work travel or so forth. But, it's not about, you don't have to get through everything within a week, but the idea is have 2 or 3 books that you're referencing, reading through. Sometimes I don't mind if you skip a little bit, but as long as you get in the context of what's in there, there's just so much opportunity in books. So that's probably the thing that is a little wrinkle and where I try to, build up my knowledge base and enrich my perspective on things. I had dinner last Friday night with another couple. They were talking about their teenage kids, saying that they wanted to educate them financially. They asked me, what couple stocks should the kids follow to learn and whatever. And I was like, that's great in theory. But the reality is if you think about long-term investing, what Acorns does in terms of diversified portfolios, that's really the best way to invest and think about long-term wealth accumulation. Within that, I was like, there's 2 books. And I ended up saying, like, you should have your kids read these 2 books, and then let's go talk about it. In fact, I said they should probably read them twice. If they read them twice, maybe even underline them like a textbook, you get a lot out of them. So it was Automatic Millionaire was one of them. And then the other one was The Psychology of Money. And collectively, these 2 books, I think, really cement one, the power and benefit of starting early, starting small, making investing a habit, how to think about the conversation where people get stuck of, I have nothing left at the end of the month, how to reverse that mentality and get themselves started. Then there's all the emotional roller coasters that come with money, and how there might be a textbook about how to deal with money, but money is an emotion, and there's that emotional connectivity comes from whether it's our childhood or other experiences that we've had. And I think both books break them down really well. From a pure pleasure standpoint, I'm in the middle of reading the second book from the 3 Body Problem trilogy. And that is a crazy cool story that I find fascinating and so forth. So that's where I'm at right now.
So I'll go back to the Tesla days where the model, when we were creating the Model S, right, we wanted to have auto-presenting door handles. So these door handles would appear as you walked to the car and allowed you to get into the Model S. And we wanted them to be flush with the overall components of the car, and which effectively translated into an impossible manufacturing cost. Because when you think of the geometry of the car, most cars have 4 exactly identical door handles, and they do that because of cost, because now it's 4 handles per car versus just 1. And we scratched our heads, and so I went and I talked to some of the designers, and I said, well, why, right? This, like, we all have these cost down targets, why did this happen? And he said, Mike, what's the first tangible experience that you have with a car? Right? And I said, well, I see it and I walk up to it and then I touch the door handle. And it's like, have you touched the door handle? Have you actually worked it? Right? The car welcomes you, right? And it makes you feel that it's unique and it's going to be a delightful experience. And that's what we were trying to create. And so I went back and I thought about that and I said, you know what? I just learned a lesson. I learned a lesson that in product design and focusing on the customer and what the customer was going to help drive our overall sales. And that was the most important thing.
Thank you for joining us on this, our first episode of 1, 2, 3, from strategic fundraising to disciplined resource allocation and lifelong learning. We hope you found these 3 CFO thought leaders of interest. Please don't forget to subscribe. This is Jack Sweeney. Until next time.